Hi, welcome, welcome. Happy Friday. For those of you I have not met yet, I'm Kari Anderson. I'm the principal with Insight Consulting Group, and I have had the pleasure of working with the Idaho Nonprofit Center over the last couple of weeks and conducting a series of webinars for all of us. And hey, I am one of us, right? This helps to center me during our time of unsettlement. And I think it's somewhat coincidental that we're talking about self-care on a Friday where hopefully we are all able to clock out earlier than hopefully 5 o'clock and actually get to the business of taking care of ourselves. So good news, I'm starting with a gift for you. This is not going to be an hour. My guess is it's probably going to be about a half an hour long, because so many of the things that I'm going to go through are things that I think we inherently know. We just actually need to start doing for ourselves and for our family members. So if you've not yet had the good fortune of hanging out with me in one of these sessions, again, know that I can't see you. You can just see me, and my cat, one of the cats, has just joined me again. So you might get to see Ralph's again today. But I can see your comments in the Q&A, and there'll be times I may ask you to raise your hand for something, so I can see that. So know that I will eventually look forward to seeing your faces, but today is not that time because, as many of you know, I distract when I see all your faces, and we just can't have that. So here we go today. So here's what this is going to look like. All this is today, because again, you've had 30,000 things thrown at you since, about March 13th in terms of COVID and budgets and staffing and shelter in place, right? And all the things. So these are just some common sense pieces to take care of you during this time. A lot of this is really basic common sense. Much of this comes from mental health professionals. I think all of you know I am not licensed, right? That is not my jam. I am a communications undergraduate degree holder and a nonprofit nerd. So, that's what I do. I like to pull from the experts when it comes to this. And so without further ado, right? So here's the thing. These are the biggies when it comes to, I think, the number one piece that some of us who are more creatives struggle with, especially if you've got a family or roommates at home. We actually have to create routine for ourselves. There are a few of us, me, right, that have had the good fortune of working remotely or working from home for about 5 years. And so we took the schedule that we had at the office and we adapted it to what we needed to get done at home. And again, not surprises here. We need to sleep. We need to have a sleep schedule. We should have a varied schedule during the day. What's the old adage? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, or Jackie a dull girl. So we need to have a varied schedule. For many of you, based on the social media pictures I've seen, that varied schedule the last couple weeks have involved baking. And then that schedule has also been weighing of oneself and wondering, am I going to come out of this being able to fit in my work clothes, right? So we need to pretend to vary the schedule where it's maybe not just baking or not just work or not just ruminating about things we can't control. We need to have a varied schedule. And the third piece is self-care. So what might this look like? So you have the same bedtime that you would have if you were in the office. You have the same workout schedule that you would have. You might just be having to work out differently. You actually build in a chance to read or a chance to knit or a chance to meditate. A couple of you that have been on calls with me know that one of my new habits that I am working on, it's not perfect yet because it hasn't been 30 days, is I'm actually recommitting to my workout schedule. I have a knee-jerk reaction to just always start working in the morning. And my new thing is I have to actually work out before I pick up my computer and start responding to emails. So whatever self-care looks like to you, it matters that it's put into your routine. And so I would encourage adopting what those of us that are type A do. We actually map out a schedule. We actually map out a checklist of things that we're going to do during the day to take care of ourselves and be part of a routine. So this is another thing, and some of you are going to throw things at my computer right now, and I don't care, right? So dress up already. So the adage is dress for what you want. And I know there's some of you who are rolling your eyes right now. One other reason I don't have you on my screen because I could see it. Yes, I know you might be in your yoga pants. or you're still in your sweats from yesterday, or whatever that might be. Maybe you have a newborn at home and you've got throw up on you, or you just got done from a workout and you're sweating, or whatever. Your thing. I don't care. The deal is you got to dress up every day. I'm not telling you got to get a suit and tie on, right? I'm not telling you that you have to have all the things, but you need to dress for what you want, not what the current situation is. So you get to decide what that is. But no, we're still all representing our business when we're on these calls, right? And you want to be the bright, shiny penny for other people. So take a shower, right? Wear some bright colors. I'm not. I'm wearing some brown right now, but my lipstick is bright. So dress up. We're still working. You guys can decide what dress up is. It is absolutely amazing what that will do in terms of your mood. And especially if you are the leader for your office, we actually need to lead by example with this. Again, I've seen far too many funny memes about, hey, it's all business up here and party, down below, pajama bottoms and slippers or fun socks or whatever that is. You decide what dress up means, but I can absolutely assure you, I know I do better work when I'm dressed like I'm going to work, like I'm actually going to see someone, like I'm going to be making a first impression. It is remarkable what it does for your mood. We've been hearing this, right, from all of the professionals, especially when those of us who are in Idaho are, oh, hey, we have a 21-day, right, in addition to whatever we just had. We still need to get out of the house. And this looks different if you're in a metro area than perchance if you are in Bonner County or where I am right now in Teton County. We've got lots more space than some of our peers do. But being outside for 30 minutes a day is a big deal for mental health. Ideally, you'd be outside not only by yourself, because that's really important for headspace, but you would also be outside with those that you have been cooped up with. You want to be able to see folks. How many of you, by show of hands, have seen the video footage or the news reports of friends that are still gathering? They'll drive to a parking lot. They will park their cars way away from each other, and they'll sit on their tailgates and chat with each other. Yes, Jean, right? It's pretty cool. Again, I'm not going to advocate one way or the other because I don't know what your risk, is. But for those of you that are really struggling with not being able to see peers, that's a thing to consider. Or walking 6 feet away from others. I know that we've been hearing that, hey, I know at least over in Jackson, Wyoming, right across the pass from me right now, Jackson has actually put an ordinance in place that you can't be with anyone else other than your immediate household people. So again, I'm not going to be the person that says what you can or can't do, but get outside, please. I talked about this a little bit before, and again, not a researcher, don't play one on TV, certainly not my undergraduate, but ideally, if you can, get outside also to exercise, and again, for 30 minutes. So ideally, when you're making a routine, you'd just be able to get outside. That's one time during the day. And then you'd be able to get outside to exercise at another point in time during the day. And for those of you who are gym rats or really prefer classes, and we can't get to the gyms anymore, there's so much content that trainers and your gyms have been putting out on all of social media channels. So if you're needing something else or someone else to follow, there's certainly opportunity. Or you can be like me and have like 17 very dusty DVRs at home that you swear, oh, hey, you know what? If I did that, my biceps would look different. I've had to dust those off and actually start using them, and we'll see what I look like right in a month. So, human connection. How many of you right now are actually spending much more time with family members than you did about 3 weeks ago? Anyone? Evan? Yes. Yes. I'm spending about the same amount of time. My husband's retired, and so this is his thing. But a lot of us are used to having much more connection with office mates or donors or friends. And we can't have that right now. So here's something else to chunk into your schedule as you are figuring out what you need to do to have a really decent mental health connection right now. Make a list of those people that you really want to be able to connect with. I know many of us have been doing happy hours via Zoom. I haven't yet participated in one of those because Yeah, that I think I have enough Zoom going on during the day where I need a little bit of a break at night. But for many of you, you might need that instead. And so maybe it's Zoom with a bunch of high school buddies. Maybe it is a Skype call with your grandma. Maybe that's some FaceTime with your friend that's in New York. Whatever that is, what we have learned from our mental health folks, again, folks smarter than me, is that variety is really important. So sometimes it might be video, and sometimes it might be phone, and sometimes it might be email, and sometimes it might be texting. But the variety is really important. And the fact that you're talking to someone not about work at least once a day for 30 minutes. That's a big deal. And for me, that's hard, right? Again, I'm hardwired to do my work, and I'm also hardwired to stop. And so the reminder of I should be checking in with other people. I was just on another video chat with Amy and Evan just not long ago, and the reminder of just how important it is to be able to talk with folks about non-work pieces at least once a day, just in order for you to keep your work spirits up, is just really important. And your kids, right? So, and I went back and forth about, do I include this or not? Because I'm not a parent, and I'm not having to worry about how I homeschool, but I would say 9/10 of the country is. And I'm guessing that you all either have immediate staff members, perhaps yourself, or people that you are really close to that are needing to help kids navigate this right now. So when we're talking about the human connection, if you've got kids at home or kids that you're responsible for, making sure that they have the opportunity to connect with their peers. And this ends up being different for each of them. I was on a call with a peer of mine who's a grant writer in Montana earlier this morning, and she's got a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. Her 3rd grader is not missing her peers as much, but the 6th grader really is. And so she's having to take specific time to set up these same sort of calls or chats or radio calls for her kids to make sure that they have that human connection. The next piece that I would like to be able to share is this, right? So, let's back that up. I have not done as much baking as some of my peers. I have a friend in Boston that I went to high school with in Spokane who's been posting these fabulous pictures of all of these amazing baked goods that she's made every day. And I haven't had time to do that. I've had other friends that have been posting pictures of their meals. And again, I haven't had time to do that. But what is absolutely so important, especially in times of stress, is that we're being mindful of what we're eating and how much of it we're eating, and the ability to hydrate. Some of you who I know on this call are of the personality persuasion where that when you are stressed, you don't eat. And some of you are of the persuasion that you overeat. This is the time for you to really be doing some assessment as to what do you do in times of stress, and if we need to do some mitigation of that, it's a great opportunity to be able to maybe think differently about how we fuel ourselves. And it's your choice, right? What you choose to do with it. But it certainly is going to help in terms of output. The next little piece that I thought was fascinating, and again, it's from folks smarter than me, is the whole idea about putting together a self-care toolkit for you. And let me give you some examples exactly what this means, because this is not something that I would have thought about that was important, because I handle stress a little differently. So all of us may know an anxious person in our lives, or you might be that anxious person. And so when professionals are talking about putting together a self-care toolkit, this is what they mean. They want to make sure that it has a sensory component. So the 7 senses, touch, taste, sight, hearing, smell, movement. And then they also want something that has a comforting pressure, right? That proprioceptive piece. Fancy word, I hadn't heard that since college. So here are some ideas. A soft blanket or a stuffed animal if it's a child. Hot chocolate. Pictures of vacations. Comforting music. A certain type of scent. It could be lavender. It could be eucalyptus. It could be mint. if you have a rocking chair or a swing and a weighted blanket. So when you are anxious, pieces and parts of all of those help to give many of us calm. For kids, it's more so of a comfort box. And that could look like a shoebox that they can help put together that might have similar things that give them comfort. And so when you are starting to feel anxious and when you're starting to feel out of control, you can go to your kit or you can go to your box. And those are things that you have chosen that you can focus on that either are touch or sight or taste or feel that help you feel more grounded. I've not had to deal with anxiety for myself. And so I'm having to learn how to be much more empathetic about those situations, and certainly reading through that list and understanding why those were important, it gave me a tool to be able to share with others. Again, something that I'm not having to think about, but lots of my folks are, is helping to make sure, and managers, this is something for you to be modeling yourself so that your staff feel like they can as well. We just have to make sure that we're building extra time for the kids. And so that means having really clear conversations, staff with your boss, as well as boss with your staff, about really how much work are you going to be able to get done at home. It might only be an hour or two a day, right? So clarity is really important in terms of what's most important for work right now, so that your kids do get quality time. And it's not just about the schoolwork that has to get done. It's about making sure that they're able to navigate stress and that you've got time to do fun things with them, because the extra time and the extra attention will help them navigate this much better than if we're just focused on the work that we need to get done at home, or if we're just focused on their schoolwork. And for those of us, again, that don't have kids or haven't had kids in the house for a while, especially if you're in a management position, this is just really important for us to be mindful of, that our parents that have kids at home need to be able to have the time and feel supported by their employer that they can be focusing on the kids. I just experienced this last week. Let me walk you through a couple of the little pieces. So in a normal day, let's just take COVID and the pandemic off the table for a second. I think we all know that most of us do a better job communicating if we are in person, right? We can see each other's facial expressions, we can hear tone, we can read body language. And again, in a good day, we will have people that, when communicating, and they appear to be normal humans, not monsters, they'll send a text or they'll send an email, and they communicate differently than they do in person. And if we don't know them well, the intonation or lack thereof makes them appear brusque or aggressive or terse or cold. Well, this has now been amplified by the fact that we are isolated, or that we're having to shelter in place, and that we have added stressors with regard to the job. And so we have to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I'm in the thick of this right now with a client, man. There was some communication that went back and forth last week, and we got some sorting out we have to do. And it's certainly because of all of the stresses. There was an email that was read not the way that it was intended, and because we were having some cell phone issues and connectivity and we couldn't get through on Zoom, we couldn't handle it. And so we got a problem we got to sort out this next week when we both are in different spaces. So let's be kind to everyone, right? This isn't just, family. This is certainly your coworkers. We need to give those in our households about the widest possible berth you can, because again, everyone deals with this differently. I haven't yet noticed in my pets a difference, again, because I'm home a lot. But I have heard from friends and clients that their pets are reacting a little differently because of the schedule or lack thereof. And we just need to give our peers, certainly, and those family members and friends that we're working through this on, a little bit of grace on this. No one has a roadmap as to how this is supposed to play out, but what we can do is be kind and to make sure that we're just making sure that we're walking in someone else's shoes, even though ours feel pretty sloppy right now ourselves. This ends up getting interesting, right? The whole idea of having a space to retreat, because all of us have a different situation at home. Some of us have a room that we can use for an office. Some of us have a space that we're now having to share with a partner or a spouse or a roommate or kids. And as we're looking at how we dig in and do this differently, Washington State just extended their shelter in place until May 4th. I know we're in this in Idaho at least until the third week in April, with an asterisk on the end saying, hey, this might extend. So now's the time, if we've been winging it at home for a little bit, we probably need to actually get pretty intentional and pretty specific about where is your spot to actually work and where is your space to be able to relax. I've had to do some changing in my own space. I have an office that I work in, and I have a habit of taking my computer out to the living room when I want to break and just kind of doing some work out there. And I've needed to really be intentional about no, because this work thing could go on forever. I am going to work in my office, and when I want a break or when I am done for the day, then I will go into the living room. And it's equally important for us to be thinking about this for kids, because again, they have work, if they are school age, that they're going to need to be doing. And then they need a space to be able to shut that off, to be able to give brain a break and be able to go and be a kid and be able to go play. And this is tough when we have tighter spaces. This is tough when you've got multiple people in the house, and it's certainly tough if we're living in an apartment and there's not a lot of places for kids to go outside. And since we're going to be in this for a bit, this is really the time, and perhaps it's this weekend, that you need to dig into this to be able to say, how are we going to make this manageable for everyone in our household? And if you're a manager or a leader at your place of employment, what can you do to support your team members that are working remotely? Behavior. And this isn't just behavior with adults, right? We've already kind of talked through the whole, how do we work through tone? It's the kid piece. And so I'm talking to you as a parent, and carefully, right? Because again, I'm not a parent, but I'm also talking to those of you that are managers of people who have kids. So we just have to, I'm careful saying assume, we just have to assume that there may be some acting out that happens with kids because of the whole stress thing, right? You're cooped up, you can't see your friends, you're having to learn online, and some of us do well with that and some don't. You're so tired of your brother in your space, whatever that ends up being, something your sister took your toy, whatever that issue might be. What I heard from a friend of mine who is a behavioral psychologist for kiddos a couple days ago is there's going to be routine disruptions. We just have to understand that. And for parents, it's really important not to introduce like behavior plans or consequences because they're acting out right now. Y'all who are parents on the phone are smarter than me with this, and I think you know this. I'm saying this more so for those of us who are bosses or managers or leaders who don't have kids, for us to be extra empathetic, because it's not just now, having kids at home. There may be some ratcheting up of behavior issues that our employees are having to deal with, and we need to be certainly additionally empathetic at this time. So there's my advice from my friend, the therapist. So let's talk a little about safety and attachment. And this is what I mean by this. Actually, not that. Let's move on to my next one. That's evidently not the slide I wanted. This is when I need to have Evan look at all my tech before I go live. All right, so let's talk instead about expectations and acceptance. And for those of us, anyone that's a little obsessive compulsive on the call, yeah, I'm telling myself, right? Anyone that has ridiculously high expectations and perchance perfectionistic? Anyone? Yes, yeah, well, me, okay? So this is the time to probably do a little mirror check with yourself to say, so what would be appropriate expectations for me at home? And for those of you that were on a call with me last week about managing remote staff, some of this came up, but I wanna make sure everyone hears this. We actually have to have from a work perspective. We need to have a conversation with our team about what our expectations are for us working at home. And I'm hoping that it's not a surprise for everyone that these expectations are not going to be the same as they were at the office because of everything, right, that we've just talked through. But we have to have a conversation about expectations, and then we probably better lower them a notch. Right? Same thing for what's going on in your household. I know that some of us, I don't know whether any of us on this call, but some of my friends that work in corporate and haven't worked at home before, their time at home right now has been, I'm not going to call it wine and roses, but they haven't had a lot to do at home. So they've got this massive list of all these home projects and stuff. And then everyone else in their household got home and they went, oh, I'm not going to be able to get all this stuff done. Right? So let's have a conversation about what expectations are, and then we probably should lower them. The other piece that we ought be thinking about, and I was a little skittish about putting the whole radical self-acceptance in here. I would just be thrilled about practicing self-acceptance like on a daily basis. But this is really an opportunity for you to get good as to accepting what is right now. Because there's a lot of us we can't control. And so the whole idea about radical self-acceptance is just taking it a day at a time and accepting things for what they are. And that's hard. That's hard on a normal day when we don't have a health pandemic and some significant economic duress going on right now. But we can't actually start to work on the accepting until we're clear as to what expectations are. And I hope that makes sense. I said this before, right? There's not a roadmap for where we're going. And if anyone is telling you differently right now, well, maybe their crystal ball is clearer than mine is. So we just have to be accepting of each other and handle the things you can, which leads me to this. Amy Little had said last hour, or actually there was another participant on the call that said, please don't start emails with COVID because I'm just deleting them. So I made a mental note because I had started an email with that and I needed to check it, right? This is what this looks like in your household. So those of you that know me know I'm a bit of a news junkie. I have been since I was little. I'm old enough where that we started the morning with the paper at home, right? And the news wasn't on. And then eventually the news, came on. I just like knowing what's going on in the world. Well, right now, all we're hearing is things about COVID. We're not hearing much more about any news. And so what I've had to do is shut off the TV because there's a threshold of information that your brain can take and then it's just too much, right? It's really easy for us to rabbit hole down into a land that is probably not great for mental health. So this is a decision for you to make in your household. So how much social media and how much news are you going to digest or ingest every day? I now set a timer. The pros say, hey, 30 minutes is about really all you should be taking in. For some of you, that might feel like FOMO, like, no, I've got to have more, right? I'm so fearful I'm going to miss out on something. So your show, right? You get to set a timer for whatever you want. Find your trusted source. I am not going to wander down the path of what that should be. Each of us have different places. Some of you really may be interested in what's going on in the news or what's going on at Johns Hopkins or what's going on at your local medical center. Again, you find your source. The big piece here, again, if you got kids, our job is to protect the kids, not from the fact that this isn't happening, but how much bombardment they're getting. And so sometimes we actually will have to check ourselves as to how much we're watching and if they're in the room, how much else they're actually getting, because that will help to ramp up where they're sitting in terms of emotional stress. Again, on the call that I was just on about an hour or so ago, a question had come out from the Idaho Nonprofit Center, and that was, so what are you seeing in your community that's actually working, right? I think that there's a news program in Spokane right now on KXLY and Channel 4, and they do a session every day on finding the helpers. Right? The old Mr. Rogers adage that if there's something bad that's going on, find the helpers. So yes, we have to take in data and we have to pay attention to what's going on with PPP and what's going on with small business loans, and when we can apply for the emergency fund, and what's going on with unemployment, and how do we help our staff, and so many things. And there's also so many things that are really remarkable that are happening in communities, big and small. And so the balance ends up, how do we stay informed with what's happening in our community and the economy and health, but also how do we pay attention to those that are actually helping to make sure that people have food and that they have access to funds and that they have access to housing and that they're able to actually navigate some of the health. So the trick always is to balance the heavy with the hopeful. And so I've made it a practice to make sure that I'm getting, at least for all the news I watch, that I'm getting at least the same amount of dosage for finding really wonderful things that are happening and things that make me happy enough that I cry, because there's certainly enough to make me cry on the other side of the coin, right? So let's talk really quickly about help. Those of you who know me on the call, I'm not super at asking for help myself. And so I have to make it a practice in my consulting practice to be better at that, so that when my clients, and I'm admonishing them for not asking for help, then I can model better behavior. Well, there's no time like the present for all of us to be helping, because we may need it, right? So the best possible way for us to exercise the help muscle is to be giving back to others right now. And that's tricky because we can't touch, right? We can't go give someone a hug. We can't go and maybe do some of the normal volunteer activities that we might, but there are ways for us to give back to others. And I saw a great example yesterday about some senior centers and some retirement facilities where that you can volunteer to call the residents to check in with them or write them notes. There's certainly stories all over the news about what people are doing to help first responders, and at certain times of the day people go out in their balconies and sing, and there's so many things. We just have to be tricky. But the piece in terms of mental health that's so important here in terms of self-care is that if we are doing something for someone else, not only does it give us a sense of purpose, but it lends us some control, and it certainly helps us to feel not so obsessed about things we can't control. So my encouragement to you, there's that control piece, right, is to find a way to do some helping every day, because it certainly will help with this control piece, right? The first week that this started to it was happening while I was on vacation. And so when I got back to the States, I will say that there was a swirl in our household for sure. I'm guessing that many of you felt that same swirl. And I had to figure out pretty quickly what I could do to gain some control of what was going on, since there was so much that I could not control. And so for me, right, my control was I could reach out to nonprofits that I either currently serve or have served to say, what can I do to support you? Where are your panic buttons right now, and where can I be supportive? For some of us, and so this is me when I need to break from that, I have been organizing my garage, right? Or handling reorganizing of pantry, or maybe it's getting projects done around the house, or making sure that I have a list made of whom I need to call to check in on. I don't care what it is, right? Other examples have been organizing bookshelves, purging closets, putting together the furniture from IKEA that's been sitting there for 2 years, restaining, a bench out in your garage, whatever that might be. Find something, because what the experts absolutely tell us is if we've got something we can control, it helps to anchor us and ground us, and it provides a way for you to be able to cope in times of uncertainty. So if you have not yet found that thing, maybe that's a project for you this weekend, is to figure out what small thing can you control in your life. For some of us, it might be we actually need to pull a head out of sand, if we haven't done it yet, to take a look at our finances, both at home and at work, to say, okay, so here's the situation, and here's what I can do about it. For others, it's, I can control how I choose to communicate with staff and family. So pick one thing, right? All right, let's talk about what else we can do in terms of keeping our head in the self-care space. Another suggestion, certainly from folks smarter than me in the therapy world, is to find a new hobby to do. I have long had on my list of things I really should probably learn to knit. Part of that, and my doctors will tell me this, that I am not a good meditator. I just can't get my head to settle down. So they have said, hey, Kari, learning a new language or knitting or gardening, and for me also waxing skis, like tuning skis, that's the closest thing to a practical meditation I can get. Right? It helps to keep my head not spinning constantly. So find a new hobby during this time. The whole adage of being able to utilize that hobby is it keeps you busy. It keeps you distracted from everything that's going on in terms of chatter, and it keeps you engaged in something else. It also allows you to take a break from the outside world because we're just getting so much stimulus right now as to what we should be paying attention to and why should we be paying attention to it. And oh my heavens, you had to apply for this yesterday. Oh no, you got to apply for it today. No, you got to wait. Can't do this before that. So find a new hobby. Oh, and if you guys hear a rustling in the background right now, my cat has joined me again, and he is evidently participating in Build a Fort Day, which is a thing. He's building a fort in my down coat. So that's what's going on in the background. Last couple pieces for us to be thinking about. And again, what I would share with you with regard to homework is you get to pick a couple of these things that resonate with you, that may help keep your head out of the worry zone. So this suggestion comes from some really great kinesiologists that I used to work with. The whole idea of having repetitive movements end up being self-soothing. And there's this really interesting brain study that's been done that if you do things that involve left to right, so oftentimes like knitting is a left to right movement, coloring, left usually to right, unless you're strange like me and I pick my favorite piece in the coloring book and do it first. It might be on the right hand side. Anything having to do with sculpting or jumping rope, drumming, although maybe drumming is not the thing. I can just hear a spouse yelling at me, no, we already have 7 people in the house. We don't need someone on the drum kit, right? But anything having to do with repetitive movements seems to really help calm your brain down. So pick something that might work for you if this is of interest. This is oftentimes when we've been sheltered in place, sometimes because of blizzards or passes being closed or a road being washed out. We have heard stories from folks about how art has been a self-soothing component. And it turns out that the emotional brain really likes creative arts and ends up being a portal for you to release feelings. So if you're thinking of picking up something having to do with visual arts, this is often a piece that can really help with managing stress. So yes, humor. There have been some wildly inappropriate and hysterical things that I've been able to watch on Facebook that I never could share with staff, right? Never, ever. I'm sure there's some PC thing in there and it would not be good for the workplace. And man, there's some funny stuff out there right now. And it is not certainly to diminish the devastation that is happening. But since we know that worry can be a constant, we have got to have some fun in there. We have got to have some fun. So it might be the cat video. I'm not going to pick up my cat and show you him right now because he's not doing anything funny. Whether it's cat video or old stand-up stuff from Saturday Night Live, which I love. I actually need to go and dig for some of that. Or Monty Python, or, whose line is it anyway? Whatever that you can do to laugh. Laugh is so important anyway, but laugh in times of crisis, chaos, and stress absolutely is the thing that can really make or break a difficult day for certain. So this is the other piece. Again, not a therapist, not a doctor, but I have to remind people. So if you are an individual that benefits from therapy, we got to do that still. right? If you are an individual that needs to have help or is really feeling like this is crushing, this is the time that we need to make sure that you have access to be able to do that, whether we're your boss and we're asking empathetically, what can we do to support you? A lot of therapists and a lot of support groups have moved online. We're still not great at reading minds, right? Family members, bosses, coworkers. And so I have to be able to articulate to all of you that this might be the time where you need to reach out for help. And that's okay, for sure, right? We're crummy at it, and we all have to help remind each other that seeking professional help might be the thing that helps get us through this. And then that's absolutely an appropriate solution for this. The other nugget that I was reminded about is the whole idea to kind of take this as a piece at a time. And what I mean by that is, and this is, again, hard for me because I'm a planner. Right? I plan the daylights out of things. I had my calendar planned through June 2021 before all this hit. I knew where I was working. I knew what my clients were. I knew when I was going on vacation. I don't deal well, though I'm a very flexible person. I don't like my plans being taken away from me. And I'm just one person in our household, right? I don't have a spouse that's working. I don't have the kids' schedule to worry about. And so the best advice that I have heard is the ability for you to choose to take this moment by moment, and or to chunk this into a project management frame of mind. Either one of those kind of allows you to personalize how you can manage challenges that either might be happening in your household, challenges that might be happening to your finances, challenges that might be happening at work. And the whole adage of chunking is this. So you will make a decision to focus on a particular date, right? And so you know that you're going to get this stuff done by this date, right? Or by this time, or by this week. Whatever feels like a manageable time for you, then that's all you're focusing on, right? You are just going to think about this week. You're just going to think about April. You're just going to think about second quarter, right? Whatever that looks like, it helps to rein in the what ifs that like to chip and chip and chip at us until we can't sleep at night. So either a moment by moment or a chunking piece should allow you not only to handle this a piece at a time, but to give you peace. And as we get ready to close this out today, I know that you've heard this, right? So we don't know when this is going to end. I heard someone say the other day, this is a season of life. And I'm like, man, this isn't the season I signed up for. And it is, right? I mean, it's here. And so we have to figure out a way to deal with it. We don't know when this is going to end, and it will. I was on the phone the other day with a client trying to figure out, a reschedule for their event, and the what ifs and the what ifs and the what ifs. And well, so we know that this will end and we can't control when. So let's talk about the things that we can control. We do know this is temporary. We can't put a date on it, but we do know that we will have a decline in the contagions. We will know that there will be a decline in deaths. We do know that people will be able to go back to work. When, we don't know. And so we have to focus on the fact that this is temporary and that we will be able to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I hope this does not sound cliche. I hope this does not, because it certainly doesn't mean to be, and I certainly don't mean to be trite about this. I have already started to think about, certainly for our family and certainly for clients I work with. So as rotten as this is right now, what are some solutions that are going to come because of us all having to be in this mess together right now? What are changes that I ought to be making personally to be stronger from this? What are changes that we need to be looking at as a family? What are changes that I need to be looking at for my business? What are changes that nonprofits should be looking at in terms of risk management, in terms of staffing, in terms of cash reserves, in terms of how we raise money or deliver on programs? As really horrible as some of our situations are right now, there is always something greater that comes out of change and chaos. Always, always, always. And so my challenge for you is, what do we learn from this? Right? Big and small, personally, professionally. There is some lesson in here, and that is not meant to, again, be trite about the situation, but there's something. I've already started to see some fairly significant reset opportunities in the nonprofit sector for certain, that I think we'll all end up benefiting from once we get through this temporary. So I'm again not a therapist. Don't play one on TV. I'm having to work through a lot of these that I offered you today myself. I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts that you guys have. And again, because I'm not a therapist, I'll give you my best advice, but I'm not going to offer you anything professional on that end. What I would say is that I'm in this boat right with you, right, rowing along, and that I am happy to serve as a resource or a voice of reason or counsel for you if it's helpful. For those of you who have been on these calls with me before, you know that you can find my calendar by going to my website. There's a section in there for contact. And so if you need help navigating something that's happening in a hot minute right now with work, you can book time with me. It's free, and I'm happy to walk you through the problem and potential solutions. If you have things pretty well handled right now and want to reach out later when there is something that you need to work through, there's also a link to what I call nonprofit therapy, and that happens on Mondays at actually it's between 8 and 5. You can book a free half an hour call for whatever you might want to work through. I'm appreciative as all get out for the work that you do in the sector and the roles that all of us are having to play right now in getting through this. And I wish you all peace this weekend and the ability to get outside and do a little playing. So thanks so much for your time, and have a lovely weekend. Take care.